Welcome back, guys, or if you're new here, this is Automotive Anonymous, and I'm currently driving my 2022 Subaru Outback. This is part of the 6th generation of Outback from 2020 to 2025, and today's video is about, is this the best road trip vehicle, or is it at least a really good one that maybe you should consider? I've owned this for over 2.5 years. It has over 38,000 miles on it, and in today's video, I'm just driving to another town, a couple hours away and a couple hundred miles, to go film a few other videos. And honestly, while I was planning to take my 23 Miata today, that would just be a really fun day trip vehicle, it actually needs a new transmission. Go down to 4th gear. Ooh, that's one of the worst ones. Transmission under warranty, so I figured and I realized that it's been over a half year since I've done a road trip vehicle on this. Last time it was driving about 1,700 miles, including 800 miles in the same day, so if you're interested in that video, you're welcome to see it. But this one is going to be just of a more updated driving impressions video over, 3, 4, 5 hours of driving. And since the last update video, I've driven over 50 more cars, so I have even more vehicles to compare this to help share with you guys if I think this is a good vehicle and if I regret buying it or if I'm actually pretty glad that I did. So let's dive right into it. Right off the bat, I want to talk about the Subaru safety features. Even my 2022 Outback still has a whole lot of them. But I do want to mention that the eyesight system, the Gen 3 with the 2 cameras, it's just not as good as the Gen 4 system that can be found in a lot of the newer Subarus. It's pretty sensitive. The steering wheel doesn't have to turn very much for you to quickly start moving more than you want to. It, of course, is a physical steering shaft. I think the only vehicle that I know of that doesn't have a shaft and has drive-by-wire is the Cybertruck, and I honestly think that does sound like kind of a cool idea to where it can numb down the steering feel at higher speeds, so it's not as sensitive and not as easily to where a slight little touch gets you out of your lane. But overall, the eyesight cameras, the lane keep assist, which is this feature right here, those 2 lines that pop up, it does a pretty good job to keep you in your lane, but it can be kind of sensitive, it can be kind of finicky, so never take your hands off of the wheel. Otherwise, the blind spot monitoring, the automatic braking and reverse automatic braking, those are all fantastic features. There's roughly 6 million car accidents a year in the United States and about 40,000 fatalities. So Subaru is one of the safest brands of any automaker, and their safety features have held up really well, and especially driving on the interstate. Always turn, look out, the actual windows, things like that. But having the blind spots that have never failed to work, how they're supposed to work on the side mirrors and all those other adaptive features, really cool. It makes driving a comfortable, convenient experience, and it doesn't feel like it takes a whole lot of focus, a whole lot of attention and like active mental participation. Although, of course, you need to provide that when you're driving. It just makes the drive that much easier. I just wish I had the upgraded eyesight system on this Outback. Or going uphill is honestly really easy, especially if you have the turbo Outback like mine. So you can either get a 182 horsepower naturally aspirated 2.5 liter boxer, or one like this that has a 2.4 liter with the Garrett turbo on it. And it does a really good job. It keeps RPM usually just over 2,000 RPM if I'm going about 80. Currently MPG, since my last fill up, right now going slightly downhill, thinks it's over 30 miles per gallon. But since the last fill up, it's getting about 28 miles per gallon, so about 2 miles per gallon than this Outback Wilderness is actually rated. Of course, if you have the NA motor, the 2.5 liter boxer, you might be able to get a few MPG higher than that. But there's a lot of elevation changes where I'm currently driving, and the turbo seems to do a really good job without having to overwork and rev really high and just kind of get rackety and annoying like sometimes you do with smaller engines. They have to work harder, and when they work harder, you're not going to get as good a mileage. This makes 277 peak torque at 2,000 RPM, and it does a really good job in getting 28 miles per gallon right now, higher than this was rated for being a 9.5 inch ground clearance all-terrain tire with all-wheel drive. I really can't complain too much. This is kind of funny, but we just opened up into 3 lanes so that the semis can take the center and the right if they're going pretty slow. But there is a 2.5 liter Outback way back there in my side mirror. It was about to pass me, and then we hit this next elevation change and it quickly fell back. This is having to work a little bit. It's almost 2,500 RPM currently. Oil temp jumped up almost 10 degrees to 216. So mine is working to go up this probably 4, 5, 6 degree grade. but it doesn't really sound like much in the interior. You can't really tell that the engine's working harder and that it's getting a little bit hotter because this turbo does a really good job to have so much boost pressure down low in the RPM. It's been another couple minutes and the Outback in my side mirror still hasn't caught up. I'm pretty quickly catching up to these semis, so I'm going to switch lanes. But it's seriously just astonishing how easy my turbo Outback is passing them. I'm probably going 25 miles an hour or faster past the one that we just passed. Its load, its engine, all those variables play a big role on how these different semis do. But they're really not moving very fast, and even now that we've basically straightened back out, you know, me going the speed limit. I guess the truck speed limit is about 10 miles per hour slower naturally, but that's a bigger difference than 10 miles per hour. This Outback's doing a really good job. And here's a pretty good example of how the eyesight adaptive cruise control works. The green light on the windshield shows that I was locked onto the truck ahead of me, which it's probably, 150 feet ahead of me. And I had the max distance so that I wouldn't be susceptible to trucks kicked up and maybe chipping my windshield from here. So now that they're gone, it's no longer holding the 72 and it's quickly and smoothly getting back up to speed. The CVT, definitely not my favorite type of an automatic transmission, but it is really smooth and it does get really good MPG, and it makes driving not really abrupt and disruptive to your, interior situation. Like if you're having a conversation, this isn't going to distract you and change the focus to, hey, driver, what's your vehicle doing? It just does a really good job and it is really smooth. I figured this is a good time to show you what the Outback next to us looks like, as well as the blind spot monitoring in action. Kicks on when it needs to. It changes the distance based off of your speed. But Outbacks like this, they're about 16 feet long. So there's a lot of room on the interior between the huge back seats and the cargo capacity back there. So you can really hold a lot of people, a lot of stuff. The payload capacity is only around 950 pounds on most of them. So you're not gonna be holding as much stuff as like a 1-ton pickup truck, but it can still hold quite a bit for being a unibody crossover. And it just makes life convenient, it makes it easy, and when you're the only occupant, it almost feels like a waste because there's so much vehicle, there's so much storage capacity, and so much more that I could carry in here, which again is kind of why I was planning originally to just take my little 2-seater Miata out today and not take the big Outback. So although being the only occupant in the vehicle today, it does feel like it's a lot of room, a lot of extra space that I don't need. It's really not much bigger than that Ford Edge, in terms of length. They're all about the same 16-ish feet long for being a crossover, and it does a really good job. If you think about it, a mid-sized truck is about 3 feet longer than this, usually closer to 19 feet. So in all reality, this really isn't that big of a vehicle. Has a lot of glass, has really good visibility. And again, the Outback specifically is based off of the Legacy sedan, which is now disappearing next year at the end of this generation. So it does drive like a sedan, it does drive, and you do sit a little bit more like a crossover or a sedan compared to a truck. You're not super upright unless you intentionally make your seat very tall vertically on the backrest. But it's just comfortable, it's easy to find a relaxing position. Just sitting here, armrest comfort, big center console. You have a couple cup holders. I of course wish this was like a Honda Odyssey that had 17, but it does a really good job and it's comfortable. And for being 16 feet long, Subaru makes really good use of their space. I've never run out of storage in here more than maybe one time, and that's when I was hauling just way too much stuff for other people across town. And then just riding in here is a really pleasant experience. The decibels on my watch, which I know is not perfectly accurate or completely objective, it's about 61, 62 based off of what the microphone on the watch can read. And it's easy to have a conversation here. Again, going 80 miles an hour, which is as fast as any interstate around here is. And it just does a good job. The wheelbase is about 9 feet. These tires are all terrain, so they are a tiny bit more knobby than a highway terrain or an all-season. So you'd expect a little bit more wheel and rolling resistance noise, and it's honestly not too bad on these GL Landers. But having over 5 inches of sidewall on any side of the wheel, which is a 17-inch, I really don't have to worry too much about potholes or running over little bits of debris if it's unavoidable. I, of course, try to avoid that, but whenever I've hit anything, I've never had any problems. These keep tire pressure pretty good. Now that they're pretty warmed up, it's a little bit higher than the 35 that they were set at cold. But it just does a good job. It's smooth. The suspension absorbs a lot of bumps and a lot of ruts in the road. And it's easy for, if you have a passenger like my backpack, for it to fall asleep and take a snooze while you're driving. This vehicle is comfortable enough that you as the driver better stay alert, and I think that's why some of the highest ones, like the Tourings, have the driver focus mitigation system. So if it thinks you're starting to close your eyes, it's going to start beeping at you. Just another way that Subaru has, safety systems in place to try to keep you prepared, alert, focused, and avoid being one of the 6 million people to have an accident. Overall, it's really comfortable, and when I'm not speaking onto the camera, I usually have the sunroof at least cracked open in the back, sometimes even slid open. That definitely adds a lot more noise, but it's a nice experience. And overall, I'm having a lot of fun driving the Outback today. I'm excited to go make a few more videos that I'll post soon on the channel. But if you guys like this video, if you found it helpful in any way, please consider liking this video. Subscribe if you haven't already. Comment your thoughts and opinions below and what you like about your Subaru, and if you think it's the best road trip vehicle you've ever had, if it's one that you're considering maybe a 2025, the last year of the 6th generation, or whatever your thoughts and opinions are, they're valid, so comment them below. And I hope to hear from you. I hope to see you on the next one. Until then, see you guys.